It's his fifth visit to West Asia in 4 months since the October 7 attacks by Hamas on Israel. And US Secretary of State Antony Blinken says diplomatic efforts will continue to dial down tensions in the region. Ever since the horrific attack by Hamas, Israeli forces have launched a counter-offensive in Gaza. The goal, as Prime Minister Netanyahu says, is to defeat Hamas once and for all. Caught in the collateral damage are civilians in Gaza as Hamas continues to use human shields. America wants a humanitarian pause in the Israeli offensive so that aid can reach the Gazans and hostages can be set free. Blinken first traveled to Riyadh. The Saudis now say they won't talk to Israel unless the latter recognizes a separate Palestinian state. Blinken's next stop was Cairo, where he met the Egyptian president. Egypt was party to the peace talks held in Paris last month to resolve the Gaza crisis. The Secretary of State's next destination was Qatar, which was privy to the Paris talks and which has been in touch with Hamas over a peace deal. The terrorist group has responded to a peace proposal, the content of which isn't public yet. At this press conference in Doha, one reporter asked very pointed questions about Netanyahu's defiant stance on the military operations in Gaza and why the US has been unable to persuade him. Blinken skirted the issue. Here's what happened.
I'm wondering, Mr. Secretary, how do you plan to overcome Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's refusal to commit to a permanent ceasefire after the phases of this deal? Was there anything in the Hamas response that you think might change his mind? And one more for you, Mr. Secretary. It's been 4 months into this war, and this is your fifth trip. And yet the United States seems unable to meaningfully influence Benjamin Netanyahu's position on some fundamental issues that you yourself advocate for. The creation of a Palestinian statehood, how long Israel's military campaign in Gaza will last, minimizing civilian casualties. Aren't you worried that this makes America look weak and it undercuts its ability to rally allies and partners in other foreign policy issues?
First, Samara, on the hostage question, I appreciate you asking the question. You'll appreciate that I'm not going to answer it because the sensitivity of this matter is such that we're just not going to get into any of the details. All I can say is what you've heard from both me and the Prime Minister, which is that we've received the response to the proposal. We are studying it intensely. It's been shared with the Israelis. I'll pick up that conversation tomorrow in Israel when I'm there, and we will be working as hard as we possibly can to try to get an agreement so that we can move forward with not only a renewed but an expanded agreement on hostages and all the benefits that would bring with it. Virtually everything that we do in diplomacy in general, and in the case of this crisis more specifically, is a process. It's almost never flipping a light switch. And it requires being in there with your sleeves rolled up every single day to try to make progress in all of the areas where we've been determined to make progress. And I think if you look at the record, we've seen important steps taken, significant steps taken that I would argue would not have happened without our engagement and our intervention, including the provision of humanitarian assistance to begin with to Gaza, which was not the case in the days following October 7th, the significant expansion of that assistance, the efforts to open more crossing points into Gaza, the work that we're doing every single day to try to strengthen protection for civilians, our efforts as well to prevent the conflict from escalating. And despite some of the recent actions that have been necessary in response to violence that we've seen directed at our personnel and our people, we've been working, I think, effectively to do that. In each and every one of these areas, we have achieved results that, had we not been engaged, I believe would not have been achieved. But in all of these areas, there is much more work to be done, and in a number of places, we need to see, as I've said before, real and clear results, not simply a change in intent, but a change in what actually results. And I will be discussing all of that when I'm in Israel tomorrow, as we have throughout this trip.